Farms, when you get down to it, are really living systems. That means if we do a lot of things right, then production takes care of itself. But if we focus on production, it usually fails. My name is Seth Watkins, and I raise cattle in Taylor County, Iowa. Our farms as living systems are sustained by natural resources. Mine is sustained by sunlight, rainfall, soil, and my own ingenuity. It's a beautiful Monday morning in Taylor County, Iowa, and I'm really tickled today because my daughter Tatum is joining us, and she's going to be helping us move a group of cattle. And basically what we talk about is rotational grazing. That means about every 5 to 7 days we move the cattle to a new pasture. It allows the grass to rest and recover from the grazing, which actually is really good for soil health and stimulates more grass growth. And then it also gives the pond some time to rest and recover as well. And it really follows what Mother Nature would have done when you followed the migration of the bison. You know, they didn't stay in one place very long. They literally were moving every 12 to 24 hours. Spots! They're coming now. We had a really nasty blizzard here, and it was March 11, 1998. I can remember it very well. The cows were miserable in those conditions, and in the aftermath, I asked, why am I working against Mother Nature? And we made the decision to move our calving date to about the 10th of April, which was more natural for our time. I wanted to do what was right by the cows and by the land, and I really wasn't concerned about my profitability at that point. But the neat thing that happened is when I made that decision, we actually lowered our costs and increased our production by working in sync with Mother Nature. Hey, buddy. And started to become a more profitable operation from that point on. Daisies. Well, that was my entry into what I'd call ecological solutions. And then from there, I learned about the principles of conservation agriculture. You know, the key principles are no-till or minimum tillage of the earth, crop rotation with 3 species or more, and keeping the soil covered with cover crops as long as possible, ideally all year long. There's a beautiful little song sparrow right there. And then there's a 4th area that I think is just as important. It's not always talked about as much. Farming in a method that enhances our wildlife. So what we have here is a riparian buffer, and what'll happen is that the water that runs off is going to go into this little ditch that we see right here, and that acts like a giant filter. You know, think about how the roots of this grass go down, and they're able to actually capture the nutrients before they make it into the water system and into the stream. Any rainfall that falls on my farm, so we're talking about the water and how it moves downstream, is going to go to a little stream right down the road. That stream is going to make its way to the West Nottoway River, and the West Nottoway River is going to flow about 70 miles to the Missouri River, and from there it goes right to the Mississippi. So, you know, once it hits the streams, for lack of better words, water's liquid and it moves fast and it gets there. Come on, Wally. I think sometimes we think because we're 1,000+ miles away from the Delta, from the Gulf, that what we do doesn't have an impact. But we have to understand that this is how watersheds work. And if something leaves my farm, I'm responsible for it. An area this massive, even though we maybe don't feel like we put that much on each acre in terms of nutrients, when you compute that over the millions of acres that we're putting down, that's a lot of stuff going downstream. This is like the offensive line right here. This is protecting the source. So we've captured a lot of sediment in that pond from the runoff from the neighbor's field. But that's really not enough when you think about the volume that moves in some of these areas. So now we come below it, and we've got a very big pond that we've built to catch more of the nutrients. So now you can already see the algae around the edge. See how much smaller it is? So already, it's starting to do its job. I'm going to take you my favorite place. And this is the last step before it goes to the stream. You know, all these plants and insects and everything interact together somehow to make this work. This is the water from that farm field that's going to walk into the stream that goes to the East Nottoway River, that goes to the Missouri River, that winds up in the Mississippi watershed, and eventually the Gulf. And this is how we're trying to protect it, and I hope more people can as well. I really believe this problem can be fixed, but it's not going to be fixed as long as we have a totally production-focused farm bill. In my mind, for our farm bill to be successful, it has to focus on the regeneration and protection of these natural resources. We can't feed people without healthy soil, and I don't want to live in a world without clean water. I'm the 4th generation of my family to care for Pinnock Farm. My daughter Tatum is the 5th generation.
That is Ira Shambaugh. He's my great-grandfather.
I'm very proud of my family's legacy, and especially my grandmother, Jessie Field Shambaugh, who is credited by many as being the founder of 4-H.
It's just a really cool thing, and it still exists now, but it also helped to encourage good farming practices.
And her motto was always to make the best better. We're finding practices that do keep the nutrients on the farm where they belong. We're finding practices that are less reliant on fossil fuel. We're finding better ways just to care for our livestock. You know, I want far more out of me than just beef. I want to make sure that I've got clean air and clean water and all the things it takes to make this a good world to live in.